Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over what the hell happened today, what we can expect moving into next week. Could be another pretty big week, to be completely honest with you. I'll go over why. And I'll give you my thoughts moving forward. So if you enjoy, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts and charts, updates, like for instance, yesterday's video, I was talking about a big move is coming. I honestly thought it will happen next week. I don't think it'll happen this week. I thought this move will start early next week. We got it today instead. But again, I share my thoughts, post updates with my members every single day. A lot of posts today, so definitely check it out. It's just $3 a month. Again, the link is down below for the YouTube membership. Would love to have you there. It includes, of course, Tesla updates, constant updates, technical analysis, options flow, or $5 gives you access to the second tier as well, which includes NVDA. But yeah, let's jump into it. NVIDIA. Tesla closing the day up a very nice, almost 10% on the day, closing at $285 per share, which obviously compared to the market, we'll say is a never so slight outperformance. So what does this mean? Well, I want to start things off actually in the weekly time frame, right? Let's start off big, and we'll slowly work our way down. I mean, you know what? Even that, let's start off with the monthly. The monthly is interesting. Why is the monthly interesting? Very nice looking monthly candle so far. Now I say so far because obviously, well, there's still about 5-ish days or so left. I lied. 3 days left in the month, right? So today's done. Obviously, we have Monday, we have Tuesday, we have Wednesday to finish off the month. So let's see how that goes. That's going to be an interesting one. But so far, that is an absolutely gorgeous looking monthly candle, but it's too early to say for sure. So that's number one. Number two, I also changed around my MACD settings. They're a little bit, it should be cleaner, smoother, stronger signals. I'll go over that more on the daily, but going over to the weekly, a few things are happening on the weekly. Number one, even with the new MACD settings, you can see it's still making 3 in a row higher lows. We have the RSI officially for the first time breaking above the essentially the simple moving average on the RSI. That shows some level of strength, which is also good to see. We have a literal rather, I should say, a bullish engulfing candle right over here on the weekly time frame, right? Obviously, this week's candle fully engulfing last week's candle, which is good to see. And of course, the last thing I'll talk about is going to be that reversion to the mean. Now, obviously, when I was talking about it, again, I was talking about this for a while down here, right? I've been mentioning this reversion to the mean on the weekly time frame, which I expect to start next week. I talked about this many times, right? I said this over and over and over. Like, again, I'm sure if you follow my videos, you've probably heard me say this like a million times for the past 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks. I don't even know how long it's been at this point. It's been a while. But here we are, right? Here we are, and it looks like it's finally starting to get ready to begin. Now, obviously, things can fall apart. Trump can do something over the weekend. Nothing is guaranteed, naturally, but it's looking like it wants to begin that reversion to the mean. And you have to admit, it's looking a little bit more likely like this is actually going to happen compared to down here when I kept saying it. And a lot of people were probably just really not believing it, right? But, obviously, after today's move, it's probably looking, okay, you know what? Maybe it'll actually happen, right? It's believable now, isn't it? So essentially, the reversion to the mean on the weekly time frame will essentially be, could be as early as next week. Maybe it'll take until the week after. I don't know how long it'll take. The timing is the part I don't know, which is why I don't usually trade options in terms of buying options, unless it's like a quick day trade, because I don't know how long it'll take. Could happen on Monday. Could happen next week, Wednesday, maybe Thursday, or maybe next week after that, Monday or Tuesday. I don't know how long it'll happen. Could be fast. Could be a little bit longer. I don't know. But what I'm at least fairly confident in is the fact that it should revert to the mean back up here, which will take Tesla, depending on how quickly it happens, anywhere between about 320 to potentially even closer to the mid 300s itself, right? So that's going to be the main thing I'll be looking for moving forward. But that's going to be what I'll be kind of eyeballing moving forward, if that makes sense, overall on the greater scheme, on the greater picture, I guess you can say, on the weekly time frame. So let's monitor that as it continues. Now let's go to the daily chart. The daily chart is pretty interesting. It looks absolutely messy because I have the Fibonacci's, but I'll go over everything, of course, one by one. You know what? And before we do the Fibonacci's, let's go over the trend lines. So first, we have this nice little trend line breakout right here. This is the one I was talking about yesterday. Nice little breakout, right? Beautiful breakout. And we had a godly follow through. I actually, for full transparency, I actually didn't think it'll happen today. Again, I thought it'll happen like next week, Monday or Tuesday. That was my assumption at least. But it ended up breaking out, which I talked about, but I expected a little bit more muted reaction. And then we blast off. That's what I thought would happen. I thought we'd kind of get this breakout, we get a little bull flag going, and then get a massive move. Instead, we just rally right away. It is what it is. The point is the fact that, hey, good enough. So on the daily, we obviously broke above this trend line. That's number one, which is good. That pretty much gave us this rally. But even more importantly, arguably, is we broke above this much larger trend line on the daily time frame. This one that has pretty much since all-time highs rejected us here, rejected us here, rejected us here, and now we're just blasting right past it, and we're closing above it. Like, these are good signs developing. There's a lot of potential bullishness, essentially, I guess you can say, developing. And this is one of those times where Tesla may honestly short squeeze, and it's arguably already doing that, but this is one of those times where I like to use the mean reversion strat, and it works about 90% of the time. But it's important to understand when we're at that 10% of the time. What that means is the fact that once you really do get a move, like an aggressive move, especially on a stock like Tesla, up or down, like for instance, this one here. I mean, this one was pretty insane. This was like historically crazy. But the point is the fact that, normally if this was like a normal movement, right? I would expect us to, probably top around here and then make our way lower, back down closer to 260s. That would be like my normal expectation. Like if this was like a normal move and I was expecting this to be a normal situation, that's what I would be telling you right now. Guys, we're below 290. As long as we're below 290, 260s next. And even then it's still possible. I don't want to completely, disregard that aspect, but the fact that it's squeezing the way it is, the fact that it's breaking all these trend lines, etc., it does have some, and options flow is stupidly bullish. There are kind of squeezy elements here, if that makes sense, right? Very, very squeezy elements, especially when you combine it with the fact that, well, next week is that week, the week that I was talking about that usually begins that mean reversion. So let's see if we begin it. So that's, the main things I'll be looking at. Now, let's say we do begin the mean reversion, right? Which, in my opinion, there's a few other things we'll talk about here. Is a break of 290 is still important. So a break in 290 is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can argue the fact that we're in this very large, essentially double bottom situation that looks something like that, let's say. But the way double bottoms are usually more confidently confirmed is breaking that tip of the W, essentially right here. And what does that tip roughly line up with? About that 290 range, right? That 290 range is pretty crucial to break because that is where we got rejected right at the tip and made our way down for essentially that double bottom. But breaking above that double bottom situation there, which, again, if you've never seen a double bottom pattern, right? I don't know, hopefully there's a good picture here somewhere. Yeah, sure, like this, beautiful. Hopefully this is good enough. It's kind of blurry. Hopefully maybe this one's better. Why are they all so blurry? Maybe this one. Yeah, this one's okay. Hopefully you can see it. I think you can. Yeah, you can. So you can see double bottom. You have that neckline, which is that number 2 spot right there. You can kind of see if you kind of zoom in on it. I don't know if I may. Why are these pictures like this? The pictures are so like. Anyways, there we go. Beautiful, right? You can see nice little double bottom. You have the number 2, which is that tip part of the W, like I mentioned. Break above that. That's essentially R290. And then we break above that. Sometimes you come back and retest it. Sometimes you don't. I mean, you don't always get the guaranteed retest. That's usually healthier. That you don't always get that, especially with Tesla stock. And then you essentially make your way higher. You make your way higher, right? It's sometimes that simple, right? And that's kind of what we're setting up here on Tesla stock, with 290 being that pivot point, essentially, if you will. So break above 290, it's looking pretty squeezy. I'm not gonna lie, it's looking pretty damn squeezy. So let's see how that plays out. And I mentioned how I also have my MACD that I altered slightly, right? And it's smoother, a little bit slower, but much smoother, much cleaner signals. And you can see how accurate it's been for the most part. Once it flipped bullish on the daily chart over here, look at this pullback stayed green the whole time. And then we had that massive squeeze. And then what happened? It turned bearish all the way up here. And then look at this, despite even having this pullback to the upside in this case, MACD stayed red the whole time, came its way down. And then you can see here, it flipped bullish right on this candle here. And then the pullback came, still remained bullish that whole time, crossed over bullishly, everything like that. And obviously it's still very much green. So the point I'm trying to make is, especially while the daily MACD is still bullishly crossed over, especially on these settings, there's a lot of things lining up, right? I know another YouTuber that I sometimes, he's a respectable YouTuber. I think his name is The Daily Trader, if I'm not mistaken, the French guy. He's great. I love him. He's amazing. He has so many lines on his chart. He's great though. He's great. I love him. He's fantastic. But the reason I bring him up is because I actually got this idea from him. This is a stochastic that he uses to essentially it essentially measures momentum, and essentially the simplest way of putting it is stochastic is above pretty much 60, and pretty much inside that green little box right there you can see there's a good chance momentum is bullish, and we're very well inside that. So that also signals momentum is clearly bullish. It's clearly bullish momentum, and if you're betting against the stock here, you are betting against the trend in my opinion, especially if you break 290, is to the upside. This is where we bring out the Fibonacci's. Right now, let's say we do break 290, because that to me is where things can really get out of control. 290 is very important. But let's say we do break it. Let's say it does happen, right? Let's say it does happen. This is where you bring out the Fibonacci's from all-time highs to this recent low on the double bottom, potentially, right? And then you have the main Fibonacci's. The first one being that 382 sitting at pretty much 320, which is pretty damn close to that weekly mean reversion, followed by 350, which is the upper end of the mean reversion on the weekly, which is that 0.5. And best case scenario, if things really go well somehow for Tesla stock, pretty much the mid 370s would be that 618 Fibonacci. That'll be the, what I'll be looking for as well. But that's, like, in my opinion, best case scenario. I'm not saying we'll get there. We might not even get there. I don't know for sure. But those are the main levels I'll be looking for as targets, I guess you can say. And again, the first one's at 320 if we break 290. So let's see how that plays out as well, right? Let's see how that plays out. But all in all, these trendline breakouts with this, 15-minute bull flag setting up, which I have right here, for instance, right? There's a lot of things setting up that is looking good. Now, obviously, like I said, my main strat is, at least one of my main strats is mean reversion. We're obviously very extended short term, but again, I'll go over the downside because there's a downside potential. But when the stock, especially like Tesla, does get to these kind of levels where it just feels like it's about to squeeze, like, and it wants to squeeze, whatever. Mean reversion is much less effective. Yeah, you'll sometimes revert slightly to the mean ever so slightly, but it's not going to be a true mean reversion like the way it's been here when it's going sideways. Mean reversion is much stronger in a sideways market than it is in a very hardcore trend favored market, like when Tesla squeezes up or down. Just keep that in mind, right? For instance, like when it was tanking nonstop, you can see, yeah, it reverts to the mean here and there, obviously, but for the most part, it pretty much just continued going down pretty aggressively. So just keep that in mind. But again, this is not without its faults. This is not without its issues or potential problems. So let's talk about the potential situations that can unfold if we get a bit, a move to the downside first, because, we can't fully ignore that, especially well below 290. So let's say we do get a small pullback first, right? What are the main levels to watch? Well, there's three main levels to watch. The first of which is going to be holding 280 to 285. This is the level that rejected us here many times, right? So if we can break, so if we hold essentially 280 to 285, well, that's the first support level, which we're clearly trying to. You can see Tesla pulled back several times, but it's roughly holding that, general vicinity. That's support number one. But if that snaps, if we lose 280, the next support I'll be looking for is this pivot point right here, which will be somewhere in the mid 270s, I should say, 270s. And if that snaps, if the mid 270s snaps, then we get a real true actual retest all the way down here back to about 260, maybe even tipping our head into the 250s. So those are the main levels of the downside I'll be looking for if, of course, it occurs. So let's see how that plays out. But again, that's assuming we're below 290. If we break 290 as early as Monday, potentially, things are looking pretty good to the upside. And I think we most likely can move very aggressively to the upside, potentially pretty quickly. So level by level, day by day, sometimes even hour by hour, right? That's kind of the way I'm eyeballing right now. And like I said, 15-minute, we are setting up this little bull flag here. So let's see how this plays out. Essentially, you want to be looking for a breakout above 285/6 or below, again, 280, honestly. That's pretty much the easiest way of looking at it. And I think that's pretty much it. Now, very quickly, taking a look at options flow, of course, is, as you can probably guess, a lot of bullish options flow today. Definitely a mix of bearish and bullish, but a lot more bullish than bearish, right? Especially towards the end of the day. That's usually where I really like to look at it. I mean, you had a lot of bullish flow throughout the day, right? For instance, here you had a 1.1 million call coming in for the middle of next month, 325 strike. And this was when Tesla was still only at 276. Now, granted, it is, about $8-ish higher, but that's not that much higher, right? So especially with someone with these kind of calls, I assume they're wanting more. But towards the end of the day, you see over here, we had, where was it? There was, towards the end of the day, there was like a 3 million, where the hell is it? Was it this far? Surely it wasn't this far back. I posted it to my members. There's 3.1 million call, 285 for next week. Okay. Yet another one over here, 1.1 million, 250 strike for next week. And you can see even a lot more in between that, right? Some puts in between, but nonetheless, right? Some very short. The reason I bring this up because they're very short term. There's a lot of calls coming in for next week, guys. Like a pretty crazy amount of calls coming in for next week. So as long as Trump doesn't do something crazy over the weekend, it's looking pretty squeezy if we break above 290, like high 280s to 290. We're looking pretty squeezy. So let's see how that plays out. But yeah, that's all I got for you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow or Monday. Peace.